Hello again, my friends. Are we going now? Oh, damn, it's been going for a bit. Fuck. Hey, everybody. If you're watching this, welcome to How to Rock a Campfire. Just kind of trying to... Just trying to figure out if I'm all good here. Oh, I am good. Sometimes this stuff's confusing. Thank you for your patience, ladies and gentlemen. It looks like we're live, we're on. I got some viewers. My name's Dustin Cormier. Today you're watching another episode of How to Rock a Campfire. Particularly, today's a special episode where we're talking about how to rock the bass guitar. Excuse me. I just had to take a little break. This is our third episode in our little series here. I shouldn't be burping in the microphone like that, but story of How to Rock a Campfire's life. Let's see if I can't move in a little bit. Move out. All right, we're back in the zone here, folks. Thank you for your patience. Today, we are going to be talking about chords. This is our third episode in this series, and we're going to be talking about what exactly it is that makes up a chord, or what is a chord. What does it mean to a bass player and to everyone, but also to a bass player? Because most bass players, when you think of a chord on the guitar, we typically see the guitarist is putting 3 different fingers on 3 different strings, and they're strumming the whole chord. And you're hearing several strings being struck at once in order to make a chord. Now, when we are playing the bass, unless we're doing some crazy, some kind of like, some funky, loud. Unless we're doing some kind of funky thing, the bass player doesn't generally play chords. The bass player plays within chord structures. And they play within the chord. And you'll notice as we're going to talk today that the notes that the bass player plays in a chord are the same notes that the guitarist plays in the guitarist's chord. And we're going to talk about that. For now, I just wanted to ascribe a little metaphor or a figure for you guys. I'm just trying to check if our chat's all good here. Yeah, we're connected. The chat is here for anybody who's watching live who feels like asking any questions or anything like that. I like to make these live videos a communal effort, so please feel free to ask or to contribute to the conversation. Now, when we're thinking about chords, what we're thinking about is there's kind of like a structure that goes along with it. Not just a chord, but a chord is also within a structure. We have another picture that kind of says the same thing, but we've got notes, we've got the chord, And then we've got the key. Can you guys see what I'm doing here? Yeah. So the chords that we play are in the key of the song, and the notes that we play are in the chord of whatever chord we're in, right? How I like to think of this stuff is that it's kind of like an umbrella. I was going to try to make some crappy little umbrella picture here just because I can, right? There's an umbrella, and then it has a smaller umbrella, and then an even smaller umbrella, right? It's like the big umbrella is our key signature. The next is the chord, and then the next is the notes, right? We can also think about this in another way, another metaphorical figure that I've made to kind of describe this is that if you have a jar full of stuff, okay? Now we have bigger stones inside this jar. I hope you guys, again, just bear with me and sort of play along. So we've got these really big stones in this jar. All various shapes and stuff. These big ones are our keys. Let's call them a K. Damn you. You guys are going to see where I'm at as soon as I really finally break through my limited competence. So you've got these big stones, and these are like the biggest items in any bass player playing any music. The key is the biggest item that everything has to float around. The next layer of detail is these little guys right here. There's lots and lots of these little guys. These are like smaller pebbles or stones. Okay? Now we know that these little pebbles and stones, because of the key, the big stones take up the most space. These smaller pebbles take up little more bits of space. And then there's actual sand that goes in between the chords. Okay? So I'm hoping that you guys see what I'm getting at here. We've got these little chords. Probably should have done this before I started this video, but that's okay. Now you guys get the gist of where I'm at here. So we've got the key. The key is the biggest part. The key is like almost like the container. That's probably what I should have said. We've got the key is the big piece. The chord is the littler, smaller piece, and then the notes are the tiny little granules that go in between all of these. Yeah, I guess that'll do for a figure. Hey, Goosey. So, when we're considering chords on the bass, we have to consider them as being made up of notes, and the chords themselves are also pieces that have to be moved around, or that we move around in the music as sort of pillars. The chord is the pillar that's defined by the key signature. The key signature is the big thing. The key signature defines what chords you're going to play. And the chord defines what notes you're going to play. Right? If we're in the key of G, there's three main chords in the key of G. There's the G, there's the C, and then there's the D, and then G again. G, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4. C, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3. D, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4. G, 4. Now we just did 3 chords played, you know, for 2 bars each, for about like 16 bars, right? And the chord changed at a certain point that is, you know, that's just the nature of how this little groove, this is a groove, the nature how this groove comes together depends on hitting the right chords in the sequence. Now you can see that the chord is like this, it's an umbrella. And all these, now let's say I just did 3 different chords. Let's break down each one. This is a chord, G. It's kind of more like G minor. Now that's all G. I'm not changing my chord right now. Even though I'm changing notes, anybody who would be watching this knows that I'm... How do you know that I'm in G the whole time? Because of the note that I'm playing on the first beat of the bar. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1. That note right there, the 3rd fret of the E string, is the G note. And that's the first note that I'm hitting in the whole sequence. That's how you know that I'm not moving from the G chord. But within this G chord, I'm still trying to make sure my bass is loud enough for you guys. Within this G chord, I'm playing 1, 2, 3, 4. Basically, I'm hitting 4, technically 5, I guess you could say, but 5 different notes. Not changing the chord. Playing 5 different notes. The first note, the 8th note, where that comes from is, you know, the G is the first, and you always define the notes and the distances between them from the keys, the major scale. Sorry about that. The intervals of these notes are defined by the major scale. So G is the first, do, re, mi, fa, sol, la, ti, do. We're actually playing the dominant 7th in there, which is a common thing for bass players and for guitarists. So like the 7th can be tricky. Usually when you're doing runs and stuff, you want to hit the major. You know, that's the major 7th, but we're doing the dominant 7th or the minor 7th. So we're going G, which is the first, do, and then the high G, which is the 8th note. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Right, so that's note number 8. 1, 8, 7, and then 5. 5, 4, 5, 1, 8, 7, 5, 4, 5, 1, 8, 7, 5, 4, 5, 1, 8, 7, 5, 4, 5. Now when I go, now that was all G chord. Remember, the chord is like these tiny little blue balls, right? That was the chord of G. Okay? Now we're going to go to the next chord, which is C. Okay? Now, in the C chord, we're going to consider all these notes in the same way. C is the first, and then the high note is also C. C is the first, C is the 8th, since the first note and the 8th note are the same note. Do, re, mi, fa, sol, la, ti, do, 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 do. They started on do and they ended on do because do is the same note. So when we're in the C chord, we're going to keep the same groove, and we're going to use the same scale intervals, right? Remember, for the G, it was 1, 8, 7, 5, 4, 5. If you understand what I mean. So this 8 is the 8th, and then the 7 is the 7th in the scale. And then the D and the C are the 5th and the 4th. Do, re, mi, fa, so. 1, 2, 3, 4. C being the 4th, and then D being the 5th, right? So when we're here, there's like a code for the chord. It's the first, 8th, 7th, 5th, 4th, 5th, first, 8th, 7th, 5th, 4th, 5th, first, 8th, 7th, 5th, 4th, 5th. Same thing, right? We did that for 4 bars. Now, we're going to the C chord, and we're going to keep the groove, and we're going to keep the same dimensions of the notes, the same note intervals. 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 1, 8, 7, 5, 4, 5, 1, 8, 7, 5, 4, 5, 1, 8, 7, 5, 4, 5, 1, 8, 7, 5, 4, 5. Now we're going to go to the D chord. And we're not going to change it. We're going to keep it the same thing. I won't bludgeon you with it and keep doing the same groove, but just so you see what I mean. 1, 2, 1, 8, 7, 5, 4, 5, 1, 8, 7, 5, 4, 5. And then that's when we run back to our first chord, which is the G. 1, 8, 7, 5, 4, 5, 1. I can see me making my bass face, you know, when I get into it, and I'm like, everyone has a bass face. So you can see that the individual notes are in these chords. You know, I could tell you, like, this is like G, G, F, D, C, D, G, G, F, D, C, D. And then when we go to the C, it's C, C, B flat, G, F, G, C, C, B flat. And then the D, 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 C, A, G, A, D, D, C, A, G, A. Those are the individual notes. And those individual notes are just like the sand that we saw in this little jar. It's the little details that you almost can't even get on, you know, you don't always want to lean on trying to know what all those notes are, because the note comes from the groove. You don't usually tend to go the other way. If you're trying to... That's why I don't usually recommend tabs, because tabs go from the sand up to the boulders. What I'm trying to teach you to do is go from the boulders down to the sand. To understand that this is a groove in the key of G, because it's using chords that are in the key of G. G is the first. C is the fourth. 1, 2. D is the fifth in the key of G. And then back to the first. Now, this is a common chord structure progression. Everyone has always used it. The Beatles were famous for just using it in friggin' everything, you know? I've got to be able to think of something that uses that. 1, 4, 5. So, I mean, like, you could think of like Elvis, you know? Elvis did that. 1, 4, 5 in the key of E. Well, let's do it in G, because just so you can see what I'm talking about. Well, since my baby left me, I'll find a new place to dwell. G, G. At the Heartbreak Hotel, baby. Make it so lonely, baby. Make it so lonely. D, make it so lonely I could die. Now, I'm playing a whole bunch of notes that are different from the groove that we had before, but it's the same chords. Different groove, different vibe, but it's the same chord structure, and it's the same key signature. Okay? So the key of G, you tend to, for every key, you tend to use the first, the fourth, and the fifth. I mean, thank God it's not just that. Music nowadays is full of variety, where you can do anything. You can have any chord coming into any chord, as long as it's in the same key signature and sounds like harmonious, right? But this 1, 4, 5 chord is something I've explained in other videos in How to Rock a Campfire, that it's just the most basic and common chord progression, chord structure. So what it comes from, 1, 4, 5. Think about it, okay? G, now we're talking about the key. Now we're talking about these big boulders. boulders that are the biggest chunks of the music. The chords are these little chunks that depend on the key. And then the notes, the little bits of granules of sand, are notes that are dependent on the chord. I hope you see this progression that I'm trying to give you. As a bass player, it's much better for you to learn to go from the big boulder, the key of the song, understand, okay, this song is in this key, get the sense of the groove, and then you say, okay, what are the chords in this key? And then you say, what are the notes in this chord? Right? I know I'm kind of bouncing around here a little bit, but I like to, an example I'll give you is that I first learned, one of the first songs I learned as a bass player, it's okay to use tabs. One of my first songs I learned as a bass player was Hot Dog by Led Zeppelin. Well, I just got into town today to find my girl has gone away. She took the Greyhound in the general store. I took my love, I took it all, to send the sign that sent you home, but she left angels hanging round for more. Now that my baby's gone, I don't know what to do. She took my love and walked right out the door. Now that was like a lot of notes, and you know, if you wanted to learn that song through tabs, that's how I learned that song. But I took, really, I always say you should go from the key, you should go from the big stones and go to the smaller bits, but I shouldn't say that necessarily, because you can go from the bits of sand in the jar, you can go from the small bits of the individual notes, and then learn, oh, now I see how this song is structured. He's landing 1, 2, 3, 4, 1. It's the first note that you hit, that everyone else knows that the song, the groove of the song that you're playing, the first note on the first beat is the chord that should start the chord progression, right? So for this song, there's this little bump, 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 this cool little chromatic thing, but it lands on the G note. Now this song, it seems way more wacky than any sort of simple Beatles song or Eagles song, but it's just doing the same 4 chords. First, fourth, fifth. G, C, D in the key of G. If it was in the key of A, we would say A, D, and E. In fact, we could play this song in the key of A and just have the whole thing the same, just bring it up 2 frets, right? Well, I just got into town today to find my girl has gone away. She took the Greyhound in the general store. I know I'm going fast. I don't want to be showing off for you guys here, but this Hot Dog song, let's go back to the key of G, because that's what we were doing for this. Right? That groove. C. D. Back to the G. So we can have, there's a groove there with a certain set of chords and a chord structure. It's the same chord structure as this this Hot Dog thing. Wella, 1, G, C, G, D, G, right? There's a structure there that's implied. And you can see that the chord structure that's implied has its own structure, but it's in a key signature. It's in the key of G, and the whole song seems to be floating around, landing back at the start of the whole thing on that G chord, right? Even after the whole chorus. If I ever find that girl, I know one thing's for sure. I'm gonna give her something like she's never had before. I took her love, I took it all. That was ba-bum, bum, bum. I took her love. The verse landed right back in G. Right? So I hope you guys can see what it is that I'm getting there, is that the chord is something that's dependent on the key of the song. And this is like vitally important to your position as a bass player. When you're doing anything, you've got to know what the key is in, because you got to know what notes not to play. It's more important for you to know what notes not to play than the notes that, for you to be thinking, you know, maybe I could add something fancy up here and fancy up here, and meanwhile you're ignoring the critical theory and letting some note slip in there that's not supposed to be in that key signature or that chord, right? So this whole video was supposed to be talking about individual chords, but I wanted to show what exactly it is that the chord itself holds the notes, but the chord itself depends on the key. So the chord is kind of in the middle of that little schema there. We're going to talk a little bit about different chords right now. Hello again, Goosey. I'll say as usual, this is a live chat. For anybody that feels like it, feel free to give us a compliment or a question or anything you feel like, and I'll do what I can to accommodate. Now, as we can see, whenever a guitarist plays a chord, I mentioned that they're playing multiple notes at one time. Now, you don't need to know the notes on the guitar. They're a little bit different on the bass, although you should obviously memorize the notes on the bass. And you should constantly be thinking of which notes you're playing on the bass, so that you get a feel for what it means to the rest of everything. But when a guitarist plays a chord, they leave their hands on one place. They just leave it there, and then their right hand has a whole lot of fun doing this. And you as the bass player don't have the fun to just leave your left hand locked. You can't just leave your left hand locked and just strum with your right hand. You're constantly playing individual notes. So, you know, some people think that bass players have an easier job. Now, for a guitarist, let's get into the theory. Okay? What I want to show you here, this is a critical connect, because your guitarist allies, your teammates, which play the treble instruments as opposed to you playing the bass instrument, they are still playing with the same science that you are, which is that a chord is made up of a first, a third, and a fifth. Every chord is basically at its bassist, made up of the first, the third, and the fifth in the scale of the chord. Okay? Now, if we're in D, we know that D is the first, Do. Now, if we go up with the Do, Re, Mi thing, we go Do, Re, E, Mi, F sharp. The theory that you got to get, and as a bass player, I highly recommend that you do. You learn about the circle of fifths. You learn about the fact that C has no sharps and flats. G has one sharp. Excuse me. D has two sharps, F sharp and C sharp. And there are lots of little clues. Maybe I should get into them today. Little key clues that show you the code which this mathematical theory follows. Because it's all the same for all musicians all throughout. And you as a bass player, you think that you can get away from it, from having to learn them, but if you really want to be a good bass player, you do have to learn this stuff. So when you look at all these notes that are on this guitar, you don't have to just take my word for it. You know, the notes that you're seeing here are a D note, that note right there, an A, which is the fifth of D, a D note again, which is the first, you know, the eighth, it's the D, and then this high note up here, that note right there, is an F sharp. Okay? So we know that what makes up a D chord is D, A, well, D, F sharp, and A. All of those, the first, the third, and the fifth of D scale, are in the D chord. They can play any of those notes at any time, and it will sound good. because it's in the chord that everyone else is playing. Now, you as a bass player, when you're playing and you're going to do some kind of groove, you know, there's this one that we've been playing this whole time where it's the boogie groove. First, third, fifth, third, D, F sharp, A, F sharp, D, F sharp, A, F sharp. Those are the notes that you're playing on the bass, like mostly, especially with those sort of boogie types of grooves. And when you, I mean, the reason that we're talking about these chords is because you have to know as a bass player that if you're in the key of D, for example, well, there's one tricky thing that you got to know. But I'm going to show you the whole thing of what I'm trying to get at right now with one song example that I'm sure some of you are perhaps going to enjoy. Yeah, nice. To Play Tonight by Sibyl Bayer. Nice. Thanks, Gary Wegging. Thanks for... There's nothing on the pick pattern. You mean in this lesson I drone a lot? I think I'm playing with my fingers anyway, so that's what I tend to do. If you play with the pick, feel free. But for me, I play with my fingers on the bass. And so that's usually what you're going to want to sort of get a feel for. Maybe I'll do a very, very, very basic beginner bass lesson and just sort of go through those things, because I didn't really do a beginner vibe with all this. I'm trying to break intermediate level bass players beyond the plateau of just being mediocre and just listening to songs and memorizing them. I'm trying to show people why it is that bass players play the notes that they do when they make a song and decide that this is the bass riff appropriate for this groove in this song. That's what I'm trying to show. So I might do a beginner sort of thing. And you asked for this song Tonight by Sibyl Bayer. I feel like tomorrow I'm going to be live with my guitar. Today's a bass guitar lesson. I'm going to focus on that. Tomorrow I'm going to smoke some weed with you guys on camera, and maybe we'll do a request. We'll do some requests. I'm definitely down for that. Now, the song we're gonna play a song right now, and we're going to get a sense for this crazy old thing that I'm trying to describe here. Now, we can see in this song, we can see the chord. Are you guys looking good? Remember, we've got the key, we've got the chord, we've got the notes. The key is the biggest stones. The chords are the little boulders and the little pebbles around those big boulders. And then the sand is the individual notes themselves. Now, we can't really see the individual notes in here. You have to know them in your theory and in your practice and in your jamming. And by feel, too. This is a song by, who is this by? Is it Three Dog Night? No, it's Grand Funk Railroad. This is a song by Grand Funk Railroad that a lot of you probably know. It's a good song to start to learn as a bass player when you first get into bass playing. It's a swung rhythm. We talked about how there's a difference between straight, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4. That's like a straight rhythm, right? For this song, I wonder how well you guys can see my bass. Blah. There we go. Well, at least you can see the notes anyway. That's what I was trying to say. So you can have something that's straight like this. For this song, we're doing something that is swung. So it's like dun da dun da dun da dun da dun da dun da dun, right? Swung style. Dun da dun da dun da dun. Now we're on one note there. Now you can see that this whole first verse is all. This song is in the key of D. It's got D is the first, and then we know G is the fourth from D. Let's just do a little bit of theory here, so just so you guys can see what I'm talking about, okay? Now, we can, we can see the chord, the key signature. The key signature is the fact that we've got D as the first, G as the fourth, and then A as the fifth. And you're going to know what I mean. And then it all wraps around back into the D in the chorus. Well, my baby, she's all right. Well, my baby, she's clean out of sight. And don't you know that she's some kind of wonderful. It kind of lands back on the D again. So the D is what the whole song floats around on. So we know we can see the key signature here is the key of D. That's the big umbrella. The smaller umbrella, the small little stones surrounding the key signature that's in the key signature, is the chords themselves. And we can see that these chords move at certain parts of the song. And it's going to be the same parts of the song every single time. It's going to be on the first note, and it's going to land there predictably, because the bass player is holding that down for everybody, right? Now, what we're going to do is we're going to go through that song, and you guys are going to see what's going on. We start with the D. I don't need a whole lot of money. I don't need a big fine car. I got everything that a man could want. I got more than I could ask for. G. Now I don't have to run around. I don't have to stay out all night. 'Cause I got me a sweet loving woman, and she knows just how to treat me right. Well, my baby, well, she's alright. Well, my baby, she's clean out of sight. Don't you know that she's some kind of wonderful. She's some kind of wonderful. Let me just see if you guys can see. Yeah, so you guys can see the chord I'm getting at too. So you can see the movement of the chord as I'm singing it. You can see where there's a chord change and there's an emphasis change, and you can feel it, you know? You don't even have to see me change it on the bass. You can just feel that there's a difference, a tonal difference when we go from I got everything that a man could want, I got more than I could ask for. The whole band goes to the G. I don't have to run around. I don't have to stay out all night. 'Cause I got me a sweet loving woman. Right? Now you can see that we went to the 'cause I got me a sweet. That's the D chord. We changed chords there. Now, we're moving these chords at these certain places, and the chords are in this key signature, the key of D. Now, there are individual notes within each of these chords that we could play, and it has to be in keeping with the key signature of the song. This one's a little funky because they do this chromatic thing, and you're allowed to do this. Sometimes you got to look for these little secrets. This song is cool because the bass player's good. He's got some cool little notes in there that you almost couldn't get to it by theory. You just have to listen with your ear and climb up to the certain notes in a certain way. What he does is he climbs up chromatically a lot. Chromatically meaning one note by one note. Dun, 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 dun. But there's one important run. And this will be our first run, you know, essentially. I mean, like, you know, we could probably do a whole video on runs, and maybe I kind of should. Maybe I'll do that. Maybe I'll consider, once we get a figure for the chords through this song, we're going to talk about different runs that we can do. But essentially, yeah, that's what I want to do right now, is show you that there's a run that he does going from the D to the G. It's this part right here. I got more than I could ask for. Now I don't have to run around. It's just before going to the G, okay? Just before changing to that G chord. He does something where he goes, I got more than I could ask for. G. I don't have to run around. So I want to count that for you just so you can see the point that we change the chord on the beat. It's got to be the same beat that everybody else is on, or else you're going to whack everybody out of whack. I got 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, G. Now I don't have to run around. I don't have to stay out. 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1. We noticed we landed on the 1 again when we went back to the D, right? Now the run from the D to the G, this will be our first run, and it's a very common run. When you're going from the first chord and you're running down to the fourth chord, it's always going to have basically this run. And it's going to be the 1st, 7th, 6th, 5th, 4th. That's like a code, you know what I mean? It's just like you got to think about this code, because you can bring this code to any key. Okay? I'm going to show you this code here with the key of D. Now, you could get lost in the details, in the sand, thinking of the fact that you're going from D, C, B, A, G. Right? That's the nature of that run. Now, if we wanted to do this in the key of E, there's lots of sharps and flats in there that can get kind of annoying, right? I got more than I could ask for. Now I don't have to run around. I'm doing the same song, just brought up 2 frets. I don't have to stay out all night, 'cause I got me a sweet loving woman. Can't sing that high, but whatever. So you can see that it's the same feel and the same vibe. I've just brought it up 2 frets, like I've said. Now we're in a different key. We're in the key of E. But within the chords, the chord intervals of the groove and the beat are still the same. We've just changed the key signature. The higher umbrella we've moved, but the little umbrellas stay the same, right? So now we're in E. We start on the E, and we're running to the 4th, that being the A note, okay? The important figure here is to know that this is a run that you can use every time, basically every time. You got to go by feel, but just about every time you go from the first note, which now is the E for us, and you go to the 4th, boom, which for us is the A now because we're in the key of E. This is the way this run goes. It's 1st, 7th, 6th, 5th, 4th, right? E, D, C sharp, B, A. Now I don't have to run around. I don't have to stay out all night, 'cause I got me a sweet. So that's the other run up, is that he runs chromatically up from the C sharp, or shall we say from the 6th. Running up chromatically from the 6th. Bum, 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 bum. And of course, if you'll know what I mean, I know these numbers can get annoying and confusing. What I mean is when I say these numbers, I'm talking about in the key of E, okay? In the E scale. So let's say we're in our E, and we're going to do do, re, mi, fa, sol, la, ti, do. Do, re, mi, fa, sol, la, ti, do. Now, I'm going to go back to D, because D is a little bit more easy to deal with, and it's what the song's actually in. I just wanted to show you the key signature change, but the chords remaining the same. But now, we're in the key of D again. Starting on our first chord, we're going to run down to the G, which is the 4th from the D chord. Because we know when we do our D major scale, it goes 1st, 4th, 5th. I guess I can't count right now. 1st, 2nd, 3rd, 4th. Do, re, mi, fa. So we're going from 1st, 2nd, 3rd, 5th, and that is the 5th. 1st, 2nd, 3rd, 4th. Sorry, I can't count today, blah. The 4th is G from the D. first, second, third, fourth. D, E, F sharp, G. Knowing that G is the fourth, that's the note that we're running down to here. Now, when I say the run consists of the first, the second, first, seventh, sixth, fifth, fourth. Now I don't have to run around, I don't have to stay out all night. And then back up to the D. Meet a sweet loving woman, and she knows just how to treat me right. Oh my babe. Now that's the fifth chord is A. My baby, she's alright. Well, my baby, she's clean out of sight. Fourth, and then back to the first. Don't you know that she is? She's some kind of wonderful. Right? So, that run, going from the first to the fourth, there's plenty of times where you'll be able to use that same run. The confusing thing you got to dig is that usually when you do a run, you want it to be in the same key, in the same scale as the chord that you're playing. This chord is in, the whole song is in the key of D. For this particular run, it's because you're going, as guitar players would know, that if you're going from the first chord to the fourth, you're allowed to use a seventh. I should show you this just so that you know what I'm talking about. I know I'm Canadian, but I don't actually do that boot thing. I just, sometimes I like to talking a boot, you know? I've never heard a Canadian say a boot. Maybe it's because I'm so close to the American border in Toronto. So when you're playing a D chord, I don't have down. I got more than I could ask for. Now I don't have to run around. I don't have to. So we go to the G7th there, but essentially, you'll know that as a guitarist, if you play guitar, when you go from the first chord being here, being D, to the fourth chord being G, you can always go from the first to the fourth. You can throw in a seventh, and that's not the major seventh, but the dominant seventh. I know it's a bit confusing, but it's just something you got to get over as someone learning to play instruments, is that a seventh means like a minor seventh. It's the seventh note dropped down one. Because as we know, in our D major scale, we go Do, Re, Mi, Fa, Sol, La, Ti, Do. In the D major scale, that Ti before the Do, before the last note, the T is usually a major note. But, well, yeah, I guess I'll show you. So, in D, let's count up in the D major scale from D. We've got 1, 2, 3, 4th, 5th, 6th, 7th, 8th, the 7th. See how it's higher there. So we're going D, E, F sharp, G, A, B, C sharp, and D. So it's C sharp because there's two sharps in the key of D, F sharp and C sharp. And the C sharp is usually sharp. But as a bass player, when you're in D, this is just one of those clues that you just got to memorize. Don't think of it in terms of the chord either. Think of it of the numerical, because the number you can trade off to be the same thing in the key of E or F sharp or G, whatever you want, okay? I'll show you what I mean. It's this Roman numeral system in music, is how you get a code that you can put into any other key or chord, okay? So we're in the first chord, that's G, that's D. We're in D, that's our first chord. Now we're climbing down to the fourth chord. Now we're in the fourth, right? Now, the run from the first to the fourth uses the first, the minor seventh, the sixth, the fifth, and the fourth. So, of course, you know, the first and the eighth, I've been talking about this in the videos, the first note and the eighth note are the same. Do, 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 re, mi, fa, sol, la, ti, do, do, do. So the high do and the low do are the same because the first and the eighth are the same. Notice how they're both called do. Do. Every other note has a different name. Do, re, mi, fa, sol, la, ti. And then do. The do's are the same word because they're the same note. That's the low D, this is the high D. So that means when we're running down from this one, it's the first note, could also be considered the eighth note. So that's why, if this is the eighth note, then this run, going from the first chord in the D down to the fourth chord, the G, the run between, you go first note, flat seventh, which is the C, right? 8, 7, 6, 5, 4. I hope I'm making this clear enough, but essentially with this particular run, whenever you're going from the first chord to the fourth, you can use the flattened seventh. It's just something that you got to memorize. Once you get it, you'll get it. You'll know what I mean. Now let's think of another song. As sure as night is dark and day is light. No, that doesn't go there. But I'm trying to think of something where... Clap for the Wolfman. Okay, here's a good one. There's a song by the Guess Who. It's called Clap for the Wolfman. It's one of my favorites. Learn it if you're a bass player because it's very good. Canadian band, the Guess Who. And they go like this. Clap for the Wolfman. He gon' reach your record high. That's right, baby, I'll be your doctor of love. Boom, 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 boom. Clap for the Wolfman. He gon'... So when he's going from this first chord, I know I'm bouncing a lot. We're going to go back to that other song, but I just want to show you this point. We're in the first chord, which is E. Key of E now, okay? E is the first chord in the key of E. E is the biggest umbrella. The chord structure is the smaller umbrella, and then the individual notes, we don't even need to think about them because we know the mathematical numerals which flesh out as the individual notes. Although, again, you should learn the individual notes as well. I know them. I have them memorized because I'm constantly thinking about them, and you should too. But for the sake of the lesson, this chord progression is going from the first to the fourth to the fifth and back to the first again, right? The first being E. He gon' rate your record high A. A. Do, 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 do. Fifth is B. Clap for the Wolfman, he gon' dig 'em till the day you die. Right? So that's first going down to the fourth, the E going down to the A, because we know that the A is fourth note of E in the E major scale. I know I keep repeating these things, but this is it. This is the chord theory that you need to be a well-to-do bass player. Okay, if E is the first, let's consider our E major scale: do, re, mi, fa, sol. First, second, third, fourth. So E, F sharp, G sharp, A. You don't need to memorize those notes. Just remember the pattern of the major scale. Look it up. Look it up. Look up the pattern of the major scale. You'll see it and know which note's the first, and you'll never have trouble figuring all this stuff out. You need the scales as an anchor for yourself, for sure. In fact, maybe I should have done the scales before I did this chord video. We kind of did in the last one. Whatever. So, learn that major scale, and that'll keep you in touch with what it is that you're doing here. So, we know that E is the first. If you're thinking to yourself, what is the fourth in E? If it's a 1 chord, 4 chord, 5 chord, you know, guitarist says to you, okay, let's clap for the Wolfman. It's in the key of E. It goes 1, 4, 5, and then back to the 1. And you go, okay, I guess I'll figure it out. and then they start playing and they're in the E, you know, E is the 1 chord, right? So what would be the 4th? You should know as a bass player. I mean, you should have them memorized eventually, but you can figure it out when you're not jamming, when you're practicing by yourself. Guy says, in the key of E goes 1, 4, 5. It's like, okay, it starts with E. What's the 4th chord of E? Well, we start on our E note and we go E, F sharp, G sharp, A, 1, 2, 3, 4. A is the 4th. So that means we're here in the E. The next chord being the A, we're falling down to the 4th. And we know from what we just learned that we can use this run, not all the time, but this run works most of the time, coming from the 1st chord to the 4th chord. You as a bass player, this is your bread and butter. This is your job, is to know when to put which runs where. But in order to do that, you need to first know what the run is going to. The first note, the 1st chord to the 4th chord, right? If you just go by memorization and you say, oh, well, this must work with every song. Every time I go from the 1st to the 4th, it must always work. It doesn't necessarily. You just got to go by kind of feel, try it out, and if it doesn't work, don't try that run again. But this is your bread and butter as a bass player. Knowing what the chords are, knowing which chords go where, and then tastefully delivering from the 1 chord to the next. Some songs are built up on it. Just like this song, She's Some Kind of Wonderful, the one that was in D that we were doing there, that is made up of the bass. It's just the bass and the drums. And then there's like organ and stuff, but they all complement the rhythm section in that song. The rhythm section is the main thing. It's a dancey song. But still in the E chord, we're still on Clap for the Wolfman. We're going from the 1st chord down to that A, the 4th chord. What we do is we go, clap for the Wolfman, 1st, 5th. Now we're going to go down to that 4th chord. What was that code again? Write it down if you have to. 1st, flat 7th, 6th, 5th, 1st, right? Clap for the Wolfman. He gone 1, 1, 7, 6, 5, 4, 5, 1, 5. Now when I land on the A, I called it the 4, but once you land on the A, notice how we landed on the A in the first beat of the bar. 1, 2. Clap for the Wolfman. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4, right? I'm emphasizing with my face on the 1 notes when we change to the next chord. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. Now, if you're a bass player and you're trying to memorize all those fancy little fucking runs in between there, and you can't get them right, it doesn't matter what everyone in the band is going to be pissed about and what the whole audience is going to be just fucking pissed about, because you are messing with their massage, and you don't want to mess with people who are full of beer and trying to get in a groove, and the bass player is like fucking being an idiot trying to do these runs that he's heard about but not landing on the note on beat 1. That is going to get beer bottles thrown at you, because people like to get into a massage groove at the end of the day after friggin' having worked hard. And if you're messing with their massage, everyone's going to hate you, especially your fellow musicians, because they're trying to keep the peace too. So, don't try to be fancy. Practice these runs, but it's more important that you jam. It's more important that when you're playing with a bunch of people, I would be more impressed for you to just go like this. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2. I would be more impressed with the basic bass playing. As long as you hit all the notes in the right proper places, I don't give a damn if you don't know a single run in your life. What matters is to be an efficient and proper bass player, is to first start off with keeping the groove for everybody. Keeping all the chords going on the first note at the right time, in time with the drummer and in time with the rhythm guys. If you can do that, then you don't even need to know any runs. To be fair, you don't. The runs, knowing when to use which runs where and tastefully, is what makes you a great bass player. Well, that's what makes you a tasteful, excellent bass player. But a great bass player just needs to know what to do at the right time, tastefully. Minimalist, to be fair. The better bass player is the one that says more by doing less. Now, I wanted to show you that's that same run from the first chord to the fourth chord, And within these chords, they're the same. This layer that we're talking about of our little jar, this layer that we're talking about, the key, the chord one, is one that I'm trying to get a consciousness of right now. Not the individual notes, but the fact of the geometrical, the numerical patterns. Blah. Full of mouth words today. The numerical patterns of the chord, so that when you're playing a song, you can see the chords coming up along with the lyrics, know that the chord is there, know which run to go to. But ultimately, in the long run, it's better for me to make the point to you that what's most important is the chords themselves, not the runs, not the fancy notes. The chord hitting it on time with the groove and the rhythm. That is what's most important. Now, let's take another little peek at this song. We're going to do it again. Feel free to practice with me. Feel free to play the song by yourself at home if you have access to YouTube. Obviously you do, and you can look up the song and play along with it on the bass. What I'm trying to show you here by showing you the lyrics and everything is the changes of the chord, going from the D to the G, back to the D, and then, well, my baby, in the A to the G, she's clean out of sight. Don't you know that she's... And then the chorus is D and G. D, G. She's some kind of wonderful, yeah, 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 yeah. I think I've kind of made the point there. We'll still do it, what the heck. Just so you can see what I'm talking about, I don't need a whole lot of money. Don't need a big fine car. Blah, blah, blah. I got everything that a man could want. I got more that I could ask for. Now I don't have G to run around. I don't have to stay out all night. 'Cause I got me a D, a sweet loving woman. And she knows just how to treat me right. Well, my A, she's alright. Well, my G7th there, that's what it's supposed to be. She's clean out of sight. Don't you know that she is? She's some kind of wonderful. She's some kind of 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. Right? Hopefully you guys don't feel like I'm just showing off here with all this stuff. I'm trying to show that the chords are something that go along on top of all these little individual notes, right? And as a bass player, I highly recommend that you learn the basic nature of these chords. And the basic nature of them, again, is it starts with the 1, 3, 5. It actually starts with the 1, 5. The nature of every chord, the most important thing for you to know is that you'll always be safe playing with the chord You'll always be safe playing with the first and fifth of the chord that you're playing. These are like the main guts of any song. Like really no matter what. There's just so many things that you could do and keep something kind of happy with playing with the first and the fifths. Because the fifth is the least dissonant tone in any chord. They call it the perfect fifth. It's a musical term that's everyone knows that in music. The fourth is also very harmonious too. Usually the fourth note doesn't cause that much hurt, although it's not as perfect as the fifth. Like no matter what, you'll be okay playing the fifth in like any chord. From there, now when you're doing anything in a song, you have to know when it's appropriate. If you're doing any kind of climb up to another note, you have to know which notes are appropriate going up or down to another chord. And that, I would say, is a lesson for the next lesson anyway. I'm still here, and I'd still, we've really, with this lesson, right now it's called What is a Chord, but I'm going to probably call it like chords and key signatures, something like that, so that people have a sense of all of this. This is the part of the theory of being a bass player that we got onto today. But the next one I'm going to start, that's happening like right now. I'm going to spend like 5 minutes again. Once we're done with this video, I'm going to spend 5 minutes. I'm going to get another beer. And we are going to actually go through some different riffs. And runs, rather. Classic, easy, simple runs that you can take in any key, any chord. You can take these runs and use them in most places. If you're in the first chord, going up to the fourth chord, there's a run that you usually use. If you're going from the first chord down to the fourth chord, you're going to use the run that we just learned. If you're in the first chord and you are running down to the fifth chord, there's a run that you usually use. And when you're in the first chord running up to the fifth chord, there's a chord that we usually use. So the transference between the first to the fourth back to the first to the fifth, and the fifth back to the first. Since 1, 4, and 5 are most of the time the chords that you're going to see in a song, that's why I'm going to give you these main runs. These four, basically the four main runs, are the ones that really are used in most places. And so you're going to see them, and you're going to learn a bit about the theory. We had to learn about the chords in order to, like, what the chords are made of, that being the notes in the scale. We had to know all of that in order to know when we do get into these next things, which is the runs, we need to know which notes are appropriate to play for which run, depending on the key and whether the chord that you're looking at is minor or major. If everyone else is playing A minor and they go from A minor up to D minor, and you go up from the first from the first being A, if you climb up to the D and you go to the A sharp, it's not going to sound good because everyone else is in A minor, which uses C, not C sharp. So it may sound confusing, but we're going to get into it basically in about 5 minutes if you keep watching live. Oh my gosh, this always happens. So, I hope you guys enjoyed that. That was today's lesson on... That was today's lesson from How to Rock a Campfire on how to rock bass. That's what we did today. As usual, I do like these videos to have all the videos that I do, I like them to have a little bit of a community component so that you guys know that you know, people have fascinations with rock stars and celebrities and stuff, and watching this guy talking about all this junk on YouTube, I want you to know that you are just as important as I am in this conversation that we have with ourselves, learning how to play music. Oh yeah, I'll have to teach you that one, Goosey. Oh, nice. My favorite song to play on bass. Oh, thank you so much, Jeff. I appreciate that. Awesome. I'm so glad to hear that you guys are enjoying. A bass lesson each week. That's an interesting thought. Because I could, couldn't I? I mean, like, I could just break... what I could start doing is breaking songs down. What I was thinking of doing is record myself playing a song on the guitar so that you can see the fingers on the guitar. And then the bigger, you know, you would see that maybe in the corner or something of the screen. Like, you know, like in this way. It's like you would see it in the corner. I wonder if I can point at it. Yeah, that corner. And then the rest of this bigger screen would be like me on the bass going through the bass tones, right? So maybe that would be enjoyable. Now that I've been trying this out, I bet that that's certainly viable, Jeff, so thank you for the recommendation. I'd say my favorite song to play on the bass... I do love playing Money on the bass. And Clap for the Wolfman might be my favorite, because it's just so... it's honestly, I mean, like, I know I just played it, and it's probably one of my favorite songs to play on the bass, because there is a lot going on there. But it's so fun to play with a bunch of people, especially with a drummer who's kind of keeping things tight. My favorite bass player... I have no idea. I'm always changing. The one that comes to my head right now is John Paul Jones. He's very creative, and for him to have made the songs and played the bass that he did for certain things, like Since I've Been Loving You, is such a fucking crazy song by Led Zeppelin, just because the timing is so fucked. It's so slow, and he's only playing that one note. Boom, but baby, since I've been loving you, yeah. Boom, 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 down, down, whatever that is. Down, 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 boom, 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 boom. I don't know, but you see what I mean. For that song, it's so slow, so meticulous, and if he plays one thing even slightly wrong, it's going to make the world explode, because there's so much densely compact energy into each one note that he's playing, and he doesn't miss a beat. John Paul Jones. Also, I really like the Lemon song. Squeeze my lemon. And then he's got all those cool, like, there's a part where they all stop, and then the bass player just gets to fucking give her, right? It's like, I went to sleep last night. I went as hard as I can. You take my money, give me my money, and you give it to another man. I should have quit you, baby. Oh, such a long time ago. You know, that whole thing. I'll do a lesson for the Lemon song, because it's just one of my favorites. So I won't go too longer with this video, because this video is just specifically about chords and chord stuff. Now, ladies and gentlemen, for my last trick today in this series thus far, the next episode, we are going to learn 4 key runs and a little bit of chord theory behind them, so that you can see what it is that makes them runs, why they're appropriate, when they're appropriate, what it is, and when to, and you know, these are like some gear for you as a bass player, so that you've got something to play off when you're jamming with people. I want you to know that if you really want to be a good bass player, you can't just keep looking at the sand. Remember, there's the key, the chords, and the notes. The keys are the big boulders, the chords are the small stones in the jar, And then the notes, the individual notes, are like the sand, the granules of sand inside the jar. If you do tabs all the time, and you just look at each individual little piece of sand, meaning the notes. If all you do is memorize the notes on tablature, you might not get a sense for, like, the bass player who wrote any song, that John Paul Jones song I just went through. He wasn't reading a tab. No one showed him each individual note to play. He knew the groove, he knew the key signature, and he knew the chord progression. Everything else just fell soulfully from his choosing because he knew the grid work, he knew the theory, he knew the structure of the song. His soul filled in the rest, and his sense of groove and rhythm and his timing with everybody else just made him try out going to those notes. And, you know, it's because he didn't lean on a formula that he got to go to such funktastic places as a bass player on the Lemon Song and such other songs. All the best bass players learn the rules before they break them. You know? They learn the structure of the song before they dance outside of it and around it. And so that's why tabs can be good. But if you want to really be a bass player who writes music and who is creatively knowledgeable about the notes that he's playing or she's playing, then you got to know them. You got to know your theory. And you've got to practice your theory. When you're playing and you're jamming a song and you think, like, what are those notes that this person's going to? Do the tab. Learn some songs by tab. But think, he's landing on this note at this time, and then he's going to this chord on this beat. Does that mean that it's going from first to fourth to fifth? You know, think about all those things when you're practicing as a bass player. So I hope you guys dug that. My name's Dustin Cormier. It's always a pleasure to see you. This has been How to Rock a Campfire. Stay tuned. In about 5 minutes, we're going to do this last video for the night describing bass riffs, different runs that would be good for you to